I remember the exact moment my world tilted, the one that made my stomach knot into a permanent twist I couldn't shake. It was our anniversary. 2 years, countless memories, and a love story I thought was unshakable. Yet there I was, standing in my living room in my favorite dress, phone in hand, heart hammering as I scrolled through text after text, none from him. Mark, my boyfriend of 2 years. The one I thought I could trust with everything. The day had started like any other. I woke up with a smile, thinking about the plans we had meticulously crafted over the past week. A quiet dinner at that cozy Italian place downtown, followed by a walk under the city lights, ending with a bottle of wine in my apartment while we talked about our future. I had imagined it countless times. Laughter, warm hands clasped over pasta, and the soft way he would lean in, whispering that he loved me, just for me. But reality had a cruel sense of timing. By noon, I had sent him a cheerful "can't wait to see you tonight" text. Nothing. I tried to push it aside, convincing myself he was busy at work. By 4, my stomach churned. By 7, panic was clawing at me. I called him once, twice, 3 times. Each attempt met with silence. My hands shook slightly as I opened WhatsApp, rereading the last message he had sent days ago. "See you tonight, love. Can't wait." The words felt like a lie now, mocking me. It wasn't just the missed dinner that stung. It was the silence, the disregard, the feeling that every memory I had built with him in these 2 years was suddenly meaningless. I paced my apartment, the city lights outside my window flickering like distant stars I couldn't reach. The sound of the phone vibrating finally made my heart leap. Maybe he had an excuse. Maybe a reason that made sense. It wasn't him. At least, not the man I loved. The message that popped up was short, slurred even, sent at 1:17 a.m. "You deserve this. Shouldn't have invited Jason over." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, disbelief rendering me mute. My mind raced, trying to decode what that meant. Jason, my ex. The one who had left 3 years ago because we couldn't survive the distance of his med school life. The one I hadn't seen in over a year. Why would he even bring that up now? The memories flooded back. My father's heart attack a week before our anniversary. The worry that had gripped my family. The chaos of the hospital. Jason had come to visit because his mother was friends with mine. I had tried to make everything smooth for Mark, but apparently that had been the spark that ignited his rage. The betrayal I felt wasn't just in his actions tonight. It was embedded in the fact that he had been brewing resentment silently, letting it fester until it exploded on the worst possible day. I called him, ignoring the late hour and my rising anxiety. He picked up after a few rings, his voice thick with alcohol and irritation. The words tumbled out in a blur. "I can't believe you brought him here. You knew I hated it. You deserve this. I don't even know why I'm with you if you can't respect my feelings." The anger in his voice was a hurricane, and I was trapped at the center. Drenched in shock and confusion, I tried to respond, tried to explain calmly, but every sentence I formed seemed to dissolve into the ether. Mark, he was there as a family friend. My mum needed help understanding the treatment options. He was just helping. It's not about us. It never was. But he wasn't listening. The words came faster now, almost gibbering. "You think I'm stupid. I saw the way you acted, the way your mum smiled at him, how you even entertained his presence. You're choosing him over me, even now." By this point, tears were streaming down my face. Not just because he had missed our anniversary, not just because he was yelling, but because the man I loved seemed to have morphed into someone unrecognizable. My mind raced with the possibility of ending everything. Could I trust him again? Could I ever see him the same way after tonight? And yet, amidst the chaos, a small, stubborn part of me still wanted to understand, wanted to forgive, wanted to believe in the love we had nurtured. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, his voice softened, not genuinely, but in a way that spoke of guilt, fear, and the awkward apologies of someone who knew they'd gone too far. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I get so insecure, okay? I was angry. I was stupid. I love you. I'll never do this again. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hold on to the warmth I felt when he wrapped his arms around me, when he kissed me after a long day, when he whispered dreams for the future as if they were promises carved into stone. But the hurt was sharp, a jagged edge cutting through the fabric of trust. Still, after hours of trembling, thinking, and replaying every memory, I decided to give him a second chance. Love, after all, was stubborn, and I was a fool for believing it could heal wounds this deep so easily. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the city outside, replaying his words, his tone, the slurred, drunken rant that had shattered my expectations. I wondered what had happened earlier, how he had spent the day, what decisions he had made, and why the anger had built so quietly that it erupted with such destructive force. Little did I know, the story wasn't over far from it. The truth about that day would come to light in ways I could never have imagined. It began innocuously enough. The week after the anniversary, life continued, though I carried a quiet tension, a fragile barrier between us that I had built to protect myself. Mark acted as though nothing had happened, full of smiles and sweet gestures, yet the shadow lingered. I knew better than to ignore it. I observed, questioned subtly, but he reassured me repeatedly. It was a mistake, a lapse, nothing more. Then, yesterday, the bombshell dropped. Penelope, one of Mark's friends, casually mentioned in passing that he had spent the day of our anniversary with her and a group of her friends. My blood froze. My brain refused to process the words at first, and then a surge of anger, disbelief, and betrayal crashed over me. He hadn't just been at a bar alone, drowning in alcohol and rage, as he had told me. He had been out with another girl, laughing, socializing, enjoying a day I had thought was ours. I confronted him immediately. His confusion was almost laughable. "Why are you upset?" "I already apologized for missing the day." "I thought you forgave me." The nerve of it ignited something deep inside me. Forgive him. For what? For lying. For betrayal. For spending our special day with someone else while he claimed to be drowning in guilt. My chest tightened, my vision blurred with fury. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. The apology, the promises, the reassurances, they were built on deception. And I, in my stubborn hopefulness, had bought into it. The foundation of trust I had painstakingly built over 2 years was crumbling, and Mark didn't even realize the devastation he had caused. I don't know how I'll navigate the aftermath. Do I let anger rule me? Do I confront him further? Or do I walk away entirely, severing the ties that have bound me to someone who could so casually betray me? The questions swirl endlessly in my mind, and somewhere deep inside, I know the answer isn't easy. But the hook is set, the betrayal is laid bare, and the story is far from over. The morning after Penelope's revelation, I couldn't bring myself to speak to Mark, not yet. My apartment felt suffocating, walls closing in with every thought of him laughing, smiling, living a day that should have belonged to us with someone else. I paced the living room, my hands wrapped around a mug of cold coffee, trying to make sense of the swirling chaos in my mind. 2 years. 2 years of shared dreams, whispered secrets, and late-night promises, and it all felt like a lie. I kept replaying the events leading up to our anniversary. I had invited Jason over purely out of concern for my father. My dad's heart attack had thrown our entire family into a whirlwind of fear and uncertainty, and Jason, because of his connection through his mother, had come to check in, to provide information on treatment options. He had been helpful, friendly, and completely platonic. Yet Mark had taken it as an affront, a betrayal, a declaration that I was choosing my ex over him. I had reassured him countless times that there was nothing romantic happening, that Jason was simply a family friend, and yet the seed of insecurity had taken root and grown into a towering, destructive anger that overshadowed our relationship. I tried calling Mark, but I didn't expect an answer. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear him speak anyway. My phone remained silent, and in that silence, I felt both relief and despair. I went through the motions of my day, distracted by work emails, texts from friends, and the mundane tasks of life. But my mind was elsewhere, locked on the image of him with Penelope, laughing as though our anniversary was inconsequential, as though the promises he had made in the dead of night meant nothing. By late afternoon, I couldn't resist any longer. I needed answers, confrontation, clarity. I dialed his number, and after a few rings, he picked up, his voice casual, almost cheerful, as if nothing were wrong. "Hey," he said. "What's up? What's up?" I echoed, my voice tighter than I intended. "Mark, Penelope told me something. She said you spent the day with her and her friends on our anniversary. Care to explain?" There was a pause. A long, awkward pause. I could almost hear him swallowing, trying to find the right words. I didn't think it mattered. I already apologized for missing the anniversary, didn't I? You forgave me, forgave you. I spat the words, disbelief and anger merging into a single, sharp edge. "Mark, I forgave you for what I thought you told me. I forgave you for being alone at a bar, drunk, angry, not for this, for spending our anniversary with someone else." The silence on the other end was deafening, followed by a low sigh. "I don't see why you're so upset. I wasn't with her in a romantic way. We were just hanging out, okay? You're blowing this out of proportion. Blowing it out of proportion." I could feel my blood pressure spike, my hands trembling. This wasn't a minor misunderstanding. This was deception. This was betrayal. This was the very foundation of our relationship being dismantled piece by piece while he casually shrugged it off, blowing it out of proportion. I repeated, my voice rising. "Mark, this is exactly why I hesitated to give you another chance. Because you don't see the damage you cause. You don't see how your actions hurt me. You don't see how your lies, because that's what this is erode trust. You were with someone else on our anniversary, and you lied about it." There was a long pause again, and I could sense the shift in his tone. A flicker of defensiveness, but also a hint of guilt, faint and fleeting. I didn't think it would matter to you. It's not like we're like that. I swear it was nothing serious. Nothing serious. The words tasted bitter on my tongue. Mark, it's not about whether it was serious or not. It's about respect, honesty, and the fact that our relationship, our trust is supposed to matter to you. You promised me, remember? You promised you'd never hurt me like this again. And yet here we are. He was silent this time, the weight of my words finally pressing on him. I could hear it in the pause, the hesitation, the muffled sounds in the background that suggested he was pacing, unsure of how to respond. I didn't give him the chance. I hung up, my chest heaving, my heart racing. For hours, I replayed every detail, every interaction. I thought about the anniversary dinner that never happened, the laughter that had been replaced by betrayal, and the quiet, cold ache of being sidelined in my own life by the man I loved. I remembered the nights when Mark had whispered sweet things in my ear, the mornings when he held me as though nothing else mattered, and I realized, painfully, that those moments, no matter how genuine, could not erase what he had done. I began to see the pattern, the jealousy, the insecurity, the tendency to let small slights fester into explosions of anger. I had ignored the signs, excused the behavior, convinced myself that love could smooth over the rough edges. But now, faced with the evidence, I couldn't deny it any longer. The foundation of our relationship had cracks deep, irreparable cracks. And then came the memory of my father's heart attack. Jason had been there to help, a friend, a presence of reason in chaos. And yet, Mark had reacted as though it were a personal betrayal, as though I had chosen my ex over him. That insecurity, that inability to trust me or the people I cared about, had led him to make a decision that shattered everything. I sat down, tears streaming freely now, and allowed myself to feel the full weight of betrayal. Anger, sadness, confusion, heartbreak, they all collided in a storm inside me. I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about one day, one mistake. It was about a fundamental mismatch in how we valued each other, how we respected boundaries, and how we navigated the complexities of trust. And with that realization came clarity. I didn't need to guess, to wait, to hope for change. The path forward was painfully obvious. I could continue to hold on to someone who saw our love as negotiable, or I could take control, reclaim my dignity, and refuse to be sidelined in my own life. The choice, though painful, was mine. By the evening, I had drafted a plan, not a hasty, emotional reaction, but a calculated, deliberate course of action. I needed to confront him, yes, but I also needed to assert boundaries, to make clear that deception and betrayal would not be tolerated. And perhaps, just perhaps, I would let the consequences speak for themselves, because this wasn't just about anger or heartbreak. This was about justice, about the scales of respect and trust being weighed in the aftermath of betrayal. And I was no longer willing to carry the weight of his mistakes silently, no longer willing to forgive without acknowledgement, without accountability. The day ended not with reconciliation, but with resolve. I would face him, I would demand the truth, and I would decide once and for all if this relationship was salvageable, or if it had reached its inevitable conclusion. And somewhere deep inside, a small, determined spark ignited, whispering that perhaps the ending of one story could mark the beginning of my own empowerment. The next day, I confronted Mark, not with tears or pleading, but with a quiet, sharp resolve that surprised even me. I wanted answers, not excuses. I wanted the truth laid bare, without the comforting illusions I had wrapped around us for 2 years. I met him at the small cafe where we had shared countless laughs, where we had imagined a future filled with ordinary, perfect days. Today, it would serve a different purpose. He arrived, casual as ever, a faint smile on his face that did nothing to soften the tension radiating from me. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I thought maybe we could cut the bullshit," I interrupted, my voice calm but steely. "I know what you did, Mark. Don't try to pretend otherwise. I know you weren't alone at the bar. I know about Penelope and her friends. I know the truth about our anniversary." His expression faltered, a flicker of surprise crossing his features, quickly replaced by defensiveness. It wasn't what you think. I mean, yes, we were there, but it wasn't like, stop, just stop." I leaned forward, letting the weight of my gaze press against him like a physical force. It wasn't about like or not like. It was about respect, about honesty, about choosing to honor the person you claim to love instead of lying and hiding your actions. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then sighed. "I didn't think it mattered. I already apologized for missing the anniversary. I thought you forgave me." "You don't get it," I said, each word deliberate, measured, cutting through the air. "Forgiveness isn't a blanket pass to deceive again. What you did spending the day with another girl while claiming to be alone, drunk, and remorseful destroys trust. You didn't just miss a day. You undermined everything we built. Everything." Mark leaned back, running a hand through his hair, frustration flashing in his eyes. "You're overreacting. It's not like I cheated or anything. We're talking about a day, a misunderstanding, a day." I echoed, disbelief threading through my tone. 2 years of building a life together, trust, love gone in a single day because you can't control your jealousy, your anger, your impulses, overreacting. "No, Mark, this is reality, and it's ugly." For a moment, silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. I could see the tension in his jaw, the flicker of guilt and frustration battling against his ego. But I didn't flinch. I didn't let him wriggle out of accountability with half-hearted explanations or excuses. I had rehearsed this confrontation in my mind countless times, and now, the words I had carefully chosen were delivering their full impact. "I've thought long and hard," I continued, my voice steady, almost cold, "and I realized that forgiveness without acknowledgement is worthless. I won't let someone dictate my self-worth, my time, my love, without consequences. So here's what's going to happen." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, scrolling to the messages, screenshots, and texts I had compiled over the past weeks. I have everything. Every lie, every excuse, every hidden action. I don't need to fight anymore. The truth is here, and if you choose to minimize it, if you choose to dismiss the pain you caused, then I'm walking away. Mark's eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear. "Wait, you're serious? You're breaking up with me over this?" "Yes," I said simply, "not because I want to hurt you, but because I deserve better. I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. You've shown me that you can't provide those things consistently, and I refuse to be complicit in your pattern of behavior." He tried to argue, tried to claim that I was being irrational, that our love should override mistakes. But I didn't budge. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just sat there, letting the finality of my words sink in. It was liberating in a way I hadn't anticipated. The weight of indecision, the constant questioning of whether I was overreacting or being too harsh, lifted. I was free after he left. I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief for reclaiming control of my life, sorrow for the love I had lost, the memories that now carried a bittersweet sting. But amidst it all, a new clarity emerged. I wouldn't let his betrayal define me. I wouldn't let the anger consume me in a way that diminished my dignity. I would move forward, stronger, wiser, and unbound by the chains of deception. In the days that followed, I focused on myself, on my work, my family, my friends, and the quiet joys that had been overshadowed by turmoil. I allowed myself to grieve, but I also allowed myself to heal. Each step I took reinforced the realization that life was too short to be spent in mistrust, in fear, in frustration with someone who couldn't honor the bond we shared. And as for Mark, I let the truth ripple out in subtle ways. I shared the story with mutual friends, not out of spite, but as a reflection of accountability. I didn't need revenge in the dramatic sense. The exposure of his behavior, the undeniable clarity of his actions, was enough. The social mirror reflected the reality he had tried to hide, and in that reflection, the consequences of his choices became evident. The final twist, the ultimate catharsis, came when I realized that his attempts to minimize his betrayal had already isolated him. Friends distanced themselves. Murmurs of disbelief and judgment followed him quietly, and the man who had once seemed untouchable in my life was now faced with the consequences of his own actions. I didn't orchestrate this. I simply stepped back and allowed the truth to breathe. In that moment, I understood the true power of agency. I didn't need to exact revenge with malicious intent. I didn't need to humiliate him. I simply chose myself, chose honesty, and allowed the natural consequences of deceit to unfold. In doing so, I reclaimed not just my dignity, but a sense of empowerment I hadn't realized I was capable of. Looking back, the pain of that anniversary will always linger, a reminder of betrayal, of broken promises, of the fragile nature of trust. But it also serves as a testament to resilience, to the ability to confront deception with clarity, and to rise above the chaos of broken relationships. I didn't just survive his betrayal. I transformed it into a lesson, a statement, a declaration that I would not settle for less than I deserved. Mark's absence now feels like a release, not a void. And while the memories of love, laughter, and shared dreams will always exist, they no longer hold me captive. I am free to write the next chapter of my life on my terms, unbound by the mistakes of someone else, and strengthened by the trials I have endured. The story of our anniversary, of betrayal and revelation, will remain with me forever. But it is no longer a story of heartbreak. It is a story of awakening, of empowerment, and of the quiet, undeniable justice that comes when the truth is finally recognized, acknowledged, and allowed to run its course.